You are here, and that is enough. Tonight we begin a journey into one of the most curious and universal features of life, the act of play, and the gentle science that explains why we compete. At first glance, the word competition may sound sharp, filled with images of winners and losers, of pressure and judgment, yet beneath its surface lies something softer, something older than human history, something that unites us with animals, with children, and with the deep instincts of survival. Competition, when seen in the light of science, is not a harsh battlefield, but a quiet teacher. It is play given structure, rivalry softened into learning, effort transformed into joy. This journey, like all those we share together, is not a race. There is no goal to reach quickly, no task that must be achieved. The rhythm of these words is here to accompany you at whatever pace feels natural. If your body begins to soften into sleep, that is welcome. If your mind lingers awake, wandering between thoughts, that too is welcome. You cannot miss the purpose of this time, because the purpose is simply to rest here, to listen, to be carried along by the quiet science of play. Think, for a moment, of the last time you saw children at play. Perhaps it was a game of tag in a park, their laughter spilling into the air, feet pounding on grass. Perhaps it was a quiet board game indoors, where small hands carefully move pieces along a path. In every case, there is joy, but there is also structure. Someone runs, someone chases, someone wins, someone loses. Yet at the heart of it all, there is connection. Competition gives shape to their joy, not by dividing them, but by uniting them in a shared rhythm. The game depends on all of them, not only on who finishes first. Animals know this rhythm too. Wolf pups wrestle, not to harm but to test their strength. Lion cubs pounce on each other, their claws carefully sheathed. Even birds invent playful contests, swooping in aerial duels, dancing in patterns that echo both rivalry and display. These behaviors are not accidents, nor are they wastes of energy. Scientists have shown that play is a rehearsal for life, a way to practice skills without the weight of real danger. The wolf pup that tumbles today learns how to hunt tomorrow. The bird that competes in flight refines its strength for migration. Competition in its most ancient form is not destruction, but preparation. For humans, the instinct carries forward in countless ways. From the first stick races drawn in the dust by children to the great arenas of sport, we have always turned challenge into play. We seek not only to test our limits, but also to feel the thrill of striving, the closeness of others who share the same stage, the lessons that loss and victory alike can teach. Competition has shaped cultures, sharpened minds, and even guided the growth of societies. It is more than a pastime. It is practice for being human. And yet, tonight, we will not look at competition through the lens of pressure or stress. We will not dwell on rivalry as conflict. Instead, we will explore the gentler science, how competition soothes the mind, strengthens the body, and builds connection. We will see how every contest, whether between children, animals, or even nations, is rooted in cooperation, in the shared agreement that a game is worth playing only when all respect its rules. We will follow the story of play from its origins in evolution, through its many faces in culture, to its future in technology and imagination. As we begin, let us set aside the noise of winning and losing, and rest in the deeper truth that competition is not only about triumph, but about growth. It is about joy, laughter, and resilience. It is about the quiet practice of life itself. And as these reflections unfold, know that there is no rush. Whether your eyes close or remain open, whether your thoughts wander or stay close, the story will carry you. You are here, and that is enough. Long before human beings organized games with rules and prizes, long before children drew lines in the dust or counted 1, 2, 3 before a race, the first sparks of play were already alive in the natural world. Animals, in their earliest stages of life, discovered the strange and joyful act of pretending. A young lion will crouch and leap at a sibling, teeth bared but without the intent to wound. Wolf pups chase one another in circles, tugging at ears and tails, yet never delivering the fatal bite they will one day need to hunt. Even birds, whose wings will later carry them across continents, engage in playful swoops and tumbles, their movements extravagant and seemingly without purpose. To an outside observer, such behavior might appear frivolous. It consumes energy, it exposes the young to small risks, and it does not feed the belly or defend the pack. Yet science shows that these acts are anything but wasteful. They are rehearsals written into instinct. Play allows the body to test its limits in an environment softened by safety. A cub that pounces learns balance. A pup that wrestles learns the limits of strength. A bird that tumbles in air learns the power of its wings. Play is nature's classroom, where lessons are given freely and mistakes carry no mortal cost. Researchers studying young mammals have noticed that play emerges most often when basic needs are met. A hungry cub does not tumble, it searches for food. An anxious pup does not wrestle, it seeks comfort and safety. Play arises when danger is distant and nourishment secure. It is, in a way, the luxury of well-being. And yet, paradoxically, it is also essential to survival. For while it requires energy and time, play sharpens the very skills that ensure survival later. It is practice disguised as joy, training woven into laughter. Play is not limited to mammals. Birds show it in their flight patterns and calls. Even some reptiles demonstrate rudimentary forms of playful combat, mimicking battles they will one day fight in earnest. There are reports of dolphins riding waves not for travel but for delight, of elephants tossing sticks and splashing in water beyond the needs of bathing, of ravens sliding down snowy hillsides, climbing again only to repeat the glide. These behaviors serve no direct survival purpose in the moment, yet they light up the animals' lives with exploration and experiment. The sparks of play are everywhere, scattered across species, telling us that the urge to pretend, to compete in softened form, is far older than humanity itself. What is remarkable is how recognizable it all feels. When we see young animals chasing each other, we cannot help but think of our own childhood games, of running, of wrestling, of laughing as we fell into grass or sand. There is a continuity here, a thread stretching across species and time. Play is not unique to us, it is a shared inheritance, one that links humans with countless other creatures. In the bounce of a kitten, the sprint of a foal, the aerial duel of young swallows, we glimpse our own playful beginnings. Scientists have even suggested that play has evolutionary benefits beyond skill practice. It fosters social bonds, teaching young animals how to interact without violence. It creates hierarchies without cruelty, as winners and losers change with each round, reminding all that rank is fluid, not absolute. In this way, play prevents conflict as much as it rehearses it, channeling aggression into harmless rivalry. The first sparks of play, then, are more than amusing diversions. They are the ancient blueprint of learning, resilience, and cooperation. They reveal that competition, at its heart, is not war but rehearsal, not destruction but discovery. It is a testing of boundaries that deepens relationships rather than breaks them. To watch the play of animals is to see the first sketch of what would become, in humans, the elaborate worlds of games, sports, and contests. Beneath every race, every match, every playful challenge today lies this same impulse, the spark of joy that comes from striving without harm, from competing in order to grow. If one looks deep into the story of life, play emerges not as a luxury but as a thread woven into evolution itself. It appears so consistently, across so many species, that scientists now believe it is an adaptation rather than an accident. To spend energy chasing shadows, to roll on the ground without cause, to wrestle in mock battles, all of this seems wasteful at first glance. Yet time and again, natural selection has favored those creatures that engage in play, as if the benefits were too vital to abandon. Among mammals, play is the most visible, but traces of it reach even further back. Fish dart after each other in chases that carry no intent to feed. Reptiles engage in mock lunges that mimic predation. In the skies, birds perform elaborate aerial dances, diving and weaving in patterns that serve no immediate function other than to refine movement and bond with others. Play is a signal of surplus, yes, but it is also rehearsal, a way to practice before the stakes are high. Evolutionary biologists describe play as training without consequence. A chase across a meadow teaches a young predator how to move quickly, how to pivot sharply, how to anticipate. The same chase teaches the prey animal how to dodge, how to conserve bursts of speed, how to outmaneuver. Neither intends harm, yet both sharpen the tools of survival. In these gentle competitions, muscle memory forms, reflexes grow faster, instincts take shape. A young creature may not know why it plays, but its body is learning in silence. Play also cultivates flexibility. In nature, rigidity is dangerous. Survival often depends on improvisation. A predator that can only hunt in one way will fail when the environment changes. A prey animal that cannot think quickly in new situations may be caught. Play trains adaptability, forcing the brain to respond to unpredictable moves, to invent new strategies in the moment. This flexibility, sometimes called behavioral plasticity, is one of play's greatest gifts. It is what allows creatures, including humans, to thrive in ever-shifting environments. What makes play particularly fascinating in evolution is its persistence despite cost. It consumes calories, exposes the young to minor risks, and takes time away from foraging. Yet species after species retained it. This tells us something profound. The survival benefits must have outweighed the costs. Those who played grew into more capable adults. Those who lacked play fell behind, less prepared for the tests of real life. Humans carry this inheritance in a striking way. Our childhoods are unusually long compared to most species, giving us extended years of protected time for play. Anthropologists believe this long window of development was crucial for shaping our intelligence. Games of hide-and-seek honed awareness of space. Mock battles taught balance and restraint. Imaginative contests trained the mind to experiment. Children who played became adults more ready to survive, not only physically but socially. Even in adult life, humans did not discard play. Unlike many animals that play only when young, humans continue games throughout life. Sports, contests of wit, competitive rituals, all are echoes of the same evolutionary rehearsal. The need to test, to measure, to strive within boundaries is not something we outgrow. It is a designed feature of our species. Evolution favored it because it kept us sharp, resilient, and socially bonded. Seen in this light, play is not trivial. It is ancient, written into the DNA of life itself. From fish darting in shallow waters to children sprinting across playgrounds, the behavior repeats because it has been rewarded across millions of years. Play ensures that survival skills are not learned only in crisis, but rehearsed in joy. Competition, in this sense, is not a deviation from life but one of its central strategies, a gentle contest that prepares us for the harshness of the real. When we look back to the earliest days of humankind, competition emerges as a natural extension of both survival and curiosity. Our ancestors, long before written history, lived in small groups where every skill mattered. Hunting, climbing, gathering, and defending were daily necessities. Yet once the immediate needs were met, these same skills often transformed into games, contests that measured who could throw a spear the farthest, who could climb a tree the quickest, or who could run across a clearing without stumbling. At first, these contests may have been casual. A group of hunters returning with food might laugh as they compared who had struck truest. Children imitated their elders, throwing sticks or racing one another, learning through rivalry what would later become vital for their survival. Over time, these playful comparisons turned into more structured rituals. Archaeologists find evidence of marked areas where foot races were held, or circles of stones where games of chance were played with carved bones. What began as improvisation gradually solidified into tradition. Competition among early humans was not only about individual skill, it was about belonging. To participate in a race or a mock battle was to prove oneself to the group. Winning mattered, but even more important was the willingness to join the contest, to accept the rules, and to share in the joy of effort. Through these rituals, trust was built. A hunter who excelled in a contest gained respect, but a hunter who refused to join risked isolation. Competition became a way of shaping identity within the tribe, signaling both competence and cooperation. As human societies grew more complex, competition expanded beyond the physical. Storytelling became a contest of memory and imagination, with bards and elders vying to see who could captivate an audience most deeply. Music and dance became arenas for rivalry as well, with groups measuring one another's skill not by survival outcomes but by beauty and rhythm. The human mind, no longer satisfied with mere physical challenges, turned competition into a tool for creativity and culture. This transformation carried another important role: conflict management. Instead of settling disputes with violence, groups often turned to games as substitutes for war. Two sides might race, wrestle, or compete in throwing contests rather than fight. The outcome carried symbolic weight, preserving honor without spilling blood. In this sense, competition became a form of diplomacy, a way to release tension within rules that prevented escalation. The shared understanding that a game could stand in place of battle reveals the deep wisdom encoded in early human rivalry. Neuroscience gives us further clues as to why these early competitions were so compelling. The anticipation of victory and the challenge of striving trigger reward pathways in the brain, releasing dopamine that heightens motivation. Endorphins, the body's natural soothers, follow physical exertion, leaving players with a glow of satisfaction whether they won or lost. For our ancestors, these rewards ensured that contests were repeated again and again, weaving them into the fabric of daily life. The origins of human competition, then, lie not in cruelty or destruction but in creativity and connection. From the spark of a child's race to the solemnity of ritualized games, competition offered both training and joy. It prepared individuals for the uncertainties of survival while strengthening the bonds of the group. It turned necessity into play and play into tradition. Even today, echoes of these origins remain. When we toss a ball, join a race, or challenge a friend in a game of skill, we are participating in a lineage that stretches back to those first circles of stones, those first laughter-filled contests after a hunt. Competition began as survival practice, but became something larger, a celebration of effort, a rehearsal for life, and a reminder that striving together is one of humanity's oldest joys. Children do not need to be taught how to play. The instinct arrives unbidden, like laughter or the urge to sing. Across cultures and times, children invent contests spontaneously, chasing, racing, hiding, jumping. A stick becomes a sword, a stone becomes a goal, a line in the dust becomes a finish line. No manual is needed, no adult instruction required. The child's game springs naturally from imagination, transforming the simplest materials into stages for competition. What appears as whimsy is in fact profound learning. Developmental psychologists observe that through play, children practice rules and boundaries. When they race, they discover fairness. Someone goes first, someone comes last, and both roles are part of the game. When they hide and seek, they learn patience, strategy, and the excitement of suspense. When they argue over rules, whether the ball was out of bounds, whether the count was too fast, they are practicing negotiation, compromise, and the subtle art of cooperation within conflict. These lessons echo across childhood. A group of children may quarrel fiercely over whether someone cheated, but within minutes they are running together again. The dispute folded into the flow of the game. Play offers not only practice in skill but also rehearsal in resilience. Losing a round brings disappointment, yet the possibility of another turn softens the sting. Through repeated cycles of loss and renewal, children develop the capacity to face frustration without despair. Anthropologists have documented remarkable similarities in children's games worldwide. In villages across Africa, children toss stones into intricate counting patterns. In ancient Greece, they played versions of tag recognizable even today. In the Arctic, Inuit children invented tugging games that built strength for future survival. Despite vast differences in environment, culture, and history, the rhythms of childhood play converge. The same impulses repeat: the race, the chase, the hiding place, the teasing contest of skill. This suggests that the child's game is not a cultural invention alone, but an evolutionary inheritance, a behavior that arises naturally wherever children gather. Neuroscience supports this view. During play, children's brains light up in regions associated with problem-solving, social awareness, and emotional regulation. The gentle stress of competition, heartbeats quickening, anticipation rising, strengthens neural pathways for focus and adaptability. When the game ends, whether in triumph or defeat, the brain records the experience as practice, building resilience for challenges yet to come. The child may not know they are training their nervous system, but the effects ripple forward into adulthood. Perhaps most moving is the joy that permeates these games. The shriek of laughter during a chase, the whispered giggle from a hiding place, the proud grin of a child who declares, "I won." These moments are not trivial. They are rehearsals for confidence, connection, and creativity. The joy ensures that the child returns to play again and again, repeating the lessons until they are woven deeply into behavior. Without joy, the learning might not endure. With it, the game becomes irresistible. And so, the child's game is both ancient and immediate. It mirrors the tumbling of wolf pups, the pouncing of lion cubs, the darting play of dolphins. Yet it also carries the distinct creativity of the human mind, capable of inventing endless new rules, stories, and challenges. It is at once universal and unique. When we see children at play, we are watching more than idle amusement. We are seeing the deep script of humanity unfolding, the instinct to compete within safety, to practice within laughter, to grow within joy. The child's game is a bridge between survival and imagination, between instinct and culture, between the animal inheritance we share and the uniquely human stories we invent. In every chalk line, every race, every playful quarrel, the gentle science of competition comes alive. Play is more than action. It is also a form of communication. Long before words, long before complex rules were written, creatures developed signals that said, "This is safe, this is play, not harm." Ethologists call these signals play markers or play bows. A young dog lowers its front legs and wags its tail before darting forward, a gesture that means the chase is not serious. Lion cubs bare their teeth with mouths open but without pressure. Even primates flash exaggerated expressions, wide eyes, playful grins, movements just a little too dramatic to show that what follows is not aggression but invitation. Without these signals, mock battles could be misinterpreted as real threats. With them, trust is built, and play can flourish. Humans have their own play signals, some subtle, some overt. A smile before a game of tag, a giggle before a chase, the declaration of "you're it." These are not only instructions but ceremonial beginnings, phrases that transform ordinary motion into play. Words and gestures, when combined, create a shared understanding that the rules have shifted, that for this moment the contest will follow different laws than life outside. Even when the body strains and hearts race, the language of play keeps the interaction safe, preventing rivalry from slipping into real hostility. The language of play is also a form of negotiation. Children instinctively call out rules as they run: no pushing, count to 10, stay behind the line. These phrases are not simply restrictions, they are agreements that hold the game together. To play is to collaborate on boundaries, to build trust in fairness. When someone breaks the rules, the group pauses to renegotiate, to reaffirm the shared contract. In this way, competition becomes a lesson in communication. The game continues not because one person dictates, but because all agree. Play has always been deeply social, and its language has crossed cultures for millennia. Ancient rituals of competition often began with chants, songs, or symbolic gestures that marked the difference between play and war. Wrestlers bowed to one another, runners lined up in ceremonial order, and referees raised hands before starting contests. These actions were not frivolous, they were safeguards, ensuring that rivalry remained bounded by respect. Even today, a handshake before and after a match carries this ancient function. It reminds players that they are opponents within the game but partners in keeping the game alive. Science reveals that this language of play activates the social brain. Mirror neurons fire when we watch another's movements, allowing us to anticipate and synchronize. When two children grin at each other before a chase, their brains are already aligning, preparing to share the rhythm of the contest. This alignment fosters empathy. Each knows the other is entering willingly. Each trusts the other to keep the boundary intact. In this sense, the language of play is not only about safety, it is about building connection at a neurological level. Perhaps what makes the language of play most remarkable is its universality. A child from one culture can recognize the playful signals of a child from another. A dog can invite a human to play with a bow, and the human will often respond instinctively. Play signals cross boundaries of species and language, tapping into something fundamental about how living beings connect. In the end, the language of play is what transforms competition from conflict into cooperation. It turns a chase into a game, a wrestle into laughter, a contest into a shared story. Without it, rivalry risks becoming harmful. With it, competition becomes a gentle science, a way of testing limits while keeping trust intact. To play is to speak a universal language, one that needs no translation, one that binds us across cultures, species, and time. At first glance, a child sprinting across a field, a group of puppies tugging at a stick, or two young primates wrestling in dust may look like nothing more than frivolous amusement. Yet beneath the laughter and the tumbling lies something more profound. These contests are rehearsals. Competition, in its gentlest form, is practice for the demands of life. Consider the simple race. A child lines up with friends, counts to 3, and runs as fast as possible toward an imagined finish line. Muscles strain, lungs pull in air, and hearts beat faster. The winner may beam with pride, the others may groan in frustration, yet all have learned something vital. They have tested their endurance, experienced the thrill of striving, and discovered the need for pacing and persistence. These lessons will echo later, when endurance is needed in work, when pacing is required in decision-making, when persistence carries one through setbacks. The same is true in mock battles. Two cubs may wrestle, growling and biting, but they instinctively pull back before true harm is done. These contests teach control, how much force can be applied before it becomes dangerous, how to restrain impulses when stakes are high. For humans, this echoes in childhood games of pretend fighting or sports like wrestling and martial arts. The body and mind both learn discipline, to be strong yet restrained, to be assertive yet respectful of boundaries. This is no small lesson. It is the foundation of conflict management in adult life. Psychologists emphasize that play-based competition cultivates problem-solving skills. Every game requires decisions: when to strike, when to retreat, when to change strategy. These micro-decisions become neural training for larger choices later in life. Through play, children learn to anticipate consequences, to adapt when strategies fail, and to accept that chance often plays a role. Games teach flexibility in thinking, a trait that proves invaluable in the uncertainties of adult experience. Even losing is part of the practice. In a safe game, losing does not mean disaster. It means another chance tomorrow. The sting of defeat sharpens reflection but does not threaten survival. A child who loses a game of marbles or hopscotch may sulk, but soon returns, ready to try again. Through these cycles, resilience grows. The ability to face disappointment, recover, and rejoin the contest becomes embedded, preparing the individual for the inevitable setbacks of life. Anthropologists suggest that many traditional sports arose as symbolic rehearsals of survival skills. Foot races reflected the chase, wrestling mirrored combat, ball games echoed hunting with thrown objects. By formalizing these contests, societies gave their members safe ways to practice essential skills while weaving joy into the process. The rules provided structure, but the essence was the same: practice without peril. Even as societies became more complex, competition retained its role as rehearsal. Storytelling contests trained memory and persuasion, preparing young members for roles as leaders or negotiators. Music and dance competitions refined rhythm and coordination, skills that strengthened social cohesion and communication. Every form of competition, no matter how small, contributed to the survival of the group by preparing its members for future challenges. Today, the principle endures, though often unnoticed. The games children play on playgrounds, the board games families enjoy at tables, the sports that adults pursue after work, all are modern expressions of ancient rehearsal. They sharpen minds, train bodies, and strengthen relationships, even when no one thinks of them as preparation. In the laughter of play, the body and brain are still quietly practicing life's great lessons. Competition, then, is not simply entertainment or distraction. It is one of evolution's most elegant strategies for learning. It allows us to rehearse courage without danger, to practice skill without penalty, to taste loss without despair. In every playful contest, life prepares us for itself, turning rivalry into resilience, challenge into growth, and practice into joy. Play exists in a delicate space, balanced between comfort and risk. Too safe, and it becomes dull, uninteresting, quickly abandoned. Too dangerous, and it ceases to be play at all, crossing the threshold into fear or harm. The sweet spot lies somewhere in between, a place where the heart beats faster, where excitement tingles through the body, yet where trust and safety hold strong enough that no real threat is felt. This balance is the secret rhythm of competition, the reason games are both thrilling and sustaining. Children demonstrate this instinctively. Watch them on a playground, climbing higher each time they scale the ladder, daring themselves to leap from just one rung higher than before. They squeal with delight at the rush of falling and landing, yet rarely go so high that true injury awaits. When they wrestle, their pushes and pulls grow vigorous, but they pull back before genuine anger spills over. In each of these moments, they are testing the edge, expanding their boundaries while remaining within the circle of safety. Their joy depends on that balance, for without risk the thrill fades, and without safety the game dissolves into fear. Animals too walk this line. Young wolves nip at one another's ears, testing jaws meant for survival but holding back from full force. Lion cubs chase and pin their siblings, yet their claws remain sheathed. These creatures are learning the very limits of their bodies, but the rules of play keep them from crossing into harm. Ethologists call this the play frame, an unspoken agreement that what unfolds is rehearsal, not reality. It is within this frame that animals and humans alike discover how far they can push without breaking the bond of trust. Neuroscience reveals why this balance matters. When an activity is too easy, the brain grows bored, attention drifts, and learning slows. When an activity is too threatening, stress hormones flood the system, overwhelming focus and shutting down exploration. But when challenge hovers just beyond current ability, difficult but not impossible, the brain enters a state psychologists call flow. In this state, time seems to soften, concentration deepens, and the individual feels fully alive. Play naturally draws children and animals into this state, where they learn most effectively, grow most rapidly, and experience the greatest joy. The balance of safety and challenge is also deeply social. For competition to remain playful, participants must trust each other to honor boundaries. A child trusts a friend not to push too hard. A wolf trusts its sibling not to bite too deep. This trust is reinforced through play signals, the smile, the grin, the wagging tail, that say, "I will test you, but I will not harm you." The more this trust is honored, the more daring the play can become, and the more growth it provides. In this way, safety does not stifle competition, it empowers it. The secure frame allows players to reach further, to test themselves more boldly, knowing that the boundary will hold. Modern games, from sports to board games, preserve this balance in structured ways. Rules serve as guardrails, keeping rivalry exciting but contained. A soccer match is fast and physical, but fouls are penalized. A chess game is intellectually demanding, but it remains bounded by clear moves. These structures ensure that the contest never tips too far, that safety always frames the challenge. Without them, competition could collapse into chaos or violence. With them, it becomes a sustainable practice, endlessly repeatable, endlessly engaging. At its heart, the joy of play rests in this paradox. We seek the rush of danger, the edge of uncertainty, but we crave it within a safe enclosure. We want to feel our hearts pound, but we also want to laugh at the end. This is the gentle wisdom of play, to transform the risk of life into a space where growth can flourish, where boundaries can be stretched without breaking, where the thrill of the unknown is softened by the reassurance of safety. What begins as spontaneous play often grows into something larger, something woven into the fabric of culture itself. A simple chase across the grass, repeated enough times, may become ritualized into a race with a starting line and rules. A game of tossing stones may evolve into a contest with scoring, ceremonies, and spectators. Over generations, these playful acts solidify into traditions, passed down not only for amusement but as expressions of identity, meaning, and heritage. Archaeological records show traces of these transformations. In ancient Greece, informal contests of running and wrestling became formalized into the Olympic Games, events that carried religious as well as social significance. Victors were celebrated not just as skilled athletes but as symbols of civic pride and even divine favor. In Mesoamerica, the ball game known as Olamalistli was played on courts with precise rules, accompanied by rituals that tied the game to cosmology and myth. In many indigenous cultures, games such as lacrosse or stickball were more than sport. They were spiritual practices, ways of communing with ancestors, of preparing for war, of maintaining harmony between communities. Tradition gave play a weight beyond the moment. A race was no longer just about who was fastest that day, but about repeating a sacred rhythm that connected past, present, and future. The child's game had grown into communal memory. Through repetition and ritual, competition became a vessel for values, courage, fairness, endurance, loyalty. These contests provided safe outlets for rivalries, but they also reinforced what societies considered honorable and necessary. The transition from spontaneous game to tradition also transformed the role of participants. No longer were they simply players amusing themselves. They became representatives of families, clans, or entire cities. Their victories carried meaning for others, binding groups together in pride or humility. In this way, competition became a stage upon which societies told stories about themselves. The games acted as mirrors, reflecting identity and aspiration back to the people who played and watched them. Tradition also brought structure. Rules were written down, referees appointed, and rituals developed to ensure fairness. This codification protected the fragile balance between challenge and safety, ensuring that contests could continue for centuries. Without these frameworks, play might dissolve into conflict. With them, it became stable enough to endure as heritage. Even today, echoes of these ancient transformations remain. A child running on a playground participates in a ritual older than history. A community gathering for a local tournament carries forward patterns that once held sacred weight. National sports, celebrated with flags, anthems, and ceremonies, are modern heirs to these older traditions, transforming games into symbols of identity and pride. What is striking is how joy endures beneath the weight of ritual. No matter how elaborate the ceremonies, no matter how high the stakes, the essence of the game remains playful. Athletes smile at one another after a match. Children invent new variations of old games, and the laughter of play persists even beneath the formality of tradition. This continuity is why traditions last. They remain rooted in the delight of competition, in the thrill of striving within shared rules. When play becomes tradition, it reminds us that competition is not only personal but collective. It binds generations, linking those who played before with those who will play after. It transforms fleeting joy into lasting memory, individual rivalry into shared meaning. And yet, at its core, it remains what it always was, a way of testing, of connecting, of celebrating life through contest. The child's laughter and the ancient festival share the same root. The game endures because it is more than pastime. It is a tradition of being human. At the heart of every game, every playful challenge, lies something ancient and enduring: joy. It is easy to think of competition as serious business, full of sweat and strain, but beneath the effort, a current of delight runs steady. This joy is not incidental. It is one of the primary reasons competition survived through evolution and culture. Without it, games might have faded away, abandoned as wasteful. With it, play became irresistible, returning again and again across generations. Imagine an early gathering of our ancestors, long before stadiums or trophies existed. After the day's hunt, the fire burns low and bellies are full. A group of young hunters begins to throw spears at a distant mark. Laughter rises as one overshoots, another barely grazes the target, and a third lands the best throw. The contest is informal, but the mood is electric. Each participant feels the thrill of trying, the rush of anticipation, the small sting of defeat softened by the group's laughter. Around them, others cheer, adding to the energy. In these moments, rivalry is not about exclusion, but about shared joy, and the memory of that joy lingers long after the fire burns out. Neuroscience helps us understand why. When we anticipate success in a game, dopamine, the brain's reward messenger, surges. Each moment of suspense, each close call, keeps us engaged, eager for the next attempt. When we exert ourselves physically, endorphins flood the body, easing strain and producing a glow of satisfaction. Even losing can trigger this cascade, for the act of striving itself is rewarding. Victory brings its own thrill, but participation alone stimulates pleasure, ensuring that the game remains appealing whether one wins or not. This ancestral joy in contest shaped human communities. It encouraged people to return to games, to refine skills, and to strengthen social ties. A game that no one enjoyed would not survive, but one that sparked laughter, pride, and shared excitement would be played again and again. Over time, these contests became rituals, traditions, even sacred ceremonies, yet always carrying the same undercurrent of delight. The smile after a goal, the cheer of a successful throw, the gleam in the eye of a runner at the finish line, all are echoes of joy carried through time. Importantly, this joy was communal. Even those who did not play felt it, watching others strive and succeed. The joy of spectators mirrored that of participants, amplifying the experience for everyone. Anthropologists believe this communal joy was essential for group cohesion. Celebrating contests together reinforced unity, turning individual rivalry into shared memory. In this way, competition strengthened not only individuals but whole societies. What is remarkable is how recognizable this joy remains today. The cheer of children playing soccer in a park, the energy of fans in a stadium, the quiet satisfaction of a board game shared among friends, all are modern expressions of the same ancient thrill. The brain still responds to competition with pleasure, just as it did for our ancestors around the fire. The joy still ensures that contests remain central to human life, woven into our culture and our biology. To see competition in this light is to recognize it not as a harsh struggle, but as a celebration. The joy is what makes rivalry sustainable, what turns effort into resilience, what transforms challenge into connection. It is the reason children beg for one more game, why adults return to sports and puzzles, why cultures carry contests forward for centuries. Beneath every rule, every ritual, every outcome, there is delight in striving. The ancestral joy in contest is humanity's oldest companion. It is the smile hidden in effort, the laughter beneath rivalry, the warmth that spreads even when victory slips away. It is what makes competition not merely a test, but a gift, a source of meaning, a spark of life, and a reminder that in striving together, we rediscover what it feels like to be fully alive. Play does something remarkable to the human mind. It draws attention in a way that is both sharp and relaxed, alert yet free. When we step into a game, whether it is a riddle, a race, or a playful debate, our thoughts narrow to the moment, to the rules, to the unfolding pattern of action. Distractions fade, the mind is held gently, not by force but by curiosity. This mental state is one of the most fertile for learning and growth, for within its frame, mistakes become experiments rather than failures, and effort feels less like work and more like discovery. Researchers who study how the brain responds to play often describe a shift in chemistry and activity. Circuits tied to reward light up, releasing messengers that make effort feel worthwhile. Regions tied to planning and memory engage more deeply, rehearsing strategies and anticipating outcomes. In this way, competition does not merely entertain, it trains the mind to imagine, to weigh, to adapt. The more varied the play, the richer the training becomes. A simple game of hide and seek strengthens spatial awareness. A strategy game teaches foresight. A playful guessing contest hones memory and attention. The beauty of this learning is that it is layered in joy. In formal education, mistakes are often feared, marked in red ink, or accompanied by judgment. But in play, mistakes are woven into the process. A wrong guess becomes a laugh. A poor move becomes a chance for another try. This reframing makes the mind more adventurous, more willing to explore the unfamiliar. Curiosity thrives where failure carries no sting. Play creates exactly this environment, turning the mind into a space where exploration is safe, where imagination can stretch without fear of collapse. Children show this vividly. When they play make-believe games, they test ideas about the world, pretending to be teachers, explorers, or doctors. These games may look fanciful, but they are serious rehearsals of thought. Adults, too, experience similar benefits. A game of chess, a puzzle solved late into the night, a friendly debate over trivia, all exercise the mind's flexibility. Play prevents rigidity. It keeps thought supple, able to bend and shift in response to new challenges. Even the element of suspense, so common in games, contributes to mental resilience. Waiting for the flip of a card, anticipating an opponent's move, counting down before a race. These moments sharpen focus, yet they also teach patience. The mind learns to hold uncertainty, to rest within the unknown, without rushing to resolution. This skill, subtle though it is, becomes invaluable in daily life, where uncertainty is constant and rarely wrapped in clear rules. The mind in play also opens pathways to creativity. In playful states, people are more likely to generate novel ideas, to combine concepts in unexpected ways, to approach problems from fresh angles. Some of history's greatest discoveries emerged from moments of playful curiosity rather than rigid analysis. Play liberates the mind from the narrow confines of utility, giving it permission to wander and invent. What makes this all the more powerful is that the mental benefits of play require no conscious effort. You do not need to intend to learn strategy while playing a game of chess, nor do you need to plan to improve memory while recalling rules or stories. The lessons seep in naturally, hidden within the laughter and the striving. The mind learns without realizing it is being trained. Competition, then, is not simply a matter of winners and losers. It is an invitation for the mind to awaken, to sharpen, to stretch. Every playful challenge is a lesson disguised as joy, a rehearsal hidden within laughter. To enter a game is to enter a space where thought becomes fluid, where the mind is both free and focused, where growth arrives not as burden but as delight. While the mind delights in strategy and imagination, the body finds its own form of education in play. Every chase, every climb, every contest of speed or strength becomes a rehearsal for movement and endurance. Muscles, bones, and nerves respond in ways that are both immediate and lasting, sculpted by the gentle pressure of repeated games. In this sense, competition is not only a matter of spirit but of flesh, a way of tuning the body to meet life's demands. Take the simple act of running. Children race each other across fields or playgrounds, not because survival demands it, but because the thrill of speed calls to them. Yet beneath that thrill, the body is learning. The lungs expand more deeply, the heart strengthens its rhythm, and the legs adapt to bursts of effort followed by recovery. A game of chase becomes a cardiovascular workout, one that builds resilience without the players ever naming it as such. The same principle applies to games of strength. Wrestling matches between siblings or friends may be playful, but they train balance, grip, and posture. Muscles learn how to resist and yield, how to strain without snapping. The nervous system, through these repeated trials, refines coordination, teaching the body to know where it is in space, to adjust when pushed, to recover when falling. These lessons are not quickly forgotten. They become part of the body's memory, accessible long after childhood play has ended. Anthropologists have long suggested that traditional games were echoes of survival needs. A tug-of-war mirrors the pulling of nets or heavy loads. Throwing games imitate the cast of a spear or stone. Jumping contests recall the leaps needed to cross streams or obstacles. By embedding these motions into games, communities ensured that young members developed the physical skills required for adult life. Yet the joy of play made the training invisible. Children raced not because they were told to prepare, but because they wanted to. The body grew strong beneath the disguise of laughter. Even in adulthood, competition continues to shape the body. Sports keep muscles active, joints flexible, and reflexes sharp. A casual tennis match may feel far removed from the struggles of survival, yet the body treats it as valuable rehearsal. Hand-eye coordination strengthens, reaction times shorten, and endurance is stretched. The pleasure of play encourages repetition, and repetition builds resilience. There is also a deeper rhythm at work. The body, when pushed through games, learns not only exertion but recovery. After running, the breath slows again. After straining, muscles soften. These cycles train the body to return to balance, to restore itself after stress. In a world where tension often lingers, play offers practice in resilience, not just the ability to push forward, but the ability to recover. Even the smallest contests carry meaning. A child balancing on a beam, daring friends to see who can stay longest, strengthens core muscles and sharpens focus. An adult playing a quiet game of catch with a child is refining coordination and reflexes without even noticing. These playful acts reveal that competition need not be grand to be beneficial. Every small challenge writes lessons into the body, and so, the body in competition is never idle. It is learning, adapting, preparing. From the laughter-filled games of childhood to the friendly matches of adulthood, the body uses play to strengthen itself against the world. In this sense, competition is not separate from well-being. It is one of its oldest partners. Every race, every wrestle, every playful challenge whispers the same message. To move is to learn, to strive is to grow, and to play is to carry the body gently into strength. Play is rarely a solitary act. Even when it appears so, a child skipping stones across a pond, or an adult playing a game of solitaire, there is often an unseen thread connecting the player to others who once taught, shared, or witnessed the act. At its heart, play is social. Competition in particular is less about isolation and more about weaving bonds between individuals, families, and communities. Consider the laughter that erupts when children chase one another. The game itself may last only minutes, yet the laughter lingers, creating warmth between them. These shared moments are the foundation of trust. Psychologists note that people who play together are more likely to feel connected, even after the game ends. The contest may divide them into opponents, but paradoxically, that division strengthens the bond. Each participant agrees to the rules, respects the boundaries, and joins in the rhythm of striving. In this way, the competition becomes a partnership. Without mutual trust, there is no game. Animals remind us of this truth as well. Primates often use play to reinforce alliances within groups. Two young apes wrestling in mock combat may later share food or protection, their playful connection spilling into daily life. Dolphins chasing each other through waves develop bonds that last for years, their contests blending into companionship. These examples reveal that play is more than practice. It is glue, binding individuals together with invisible threads of shared experience. For humans, this social bond extends into the fabric of culture. Games often mark celebrations, bringing families and communities together. A tug-of-war at a festival, a card game at a kitchen table, a local sports match, each is less about victory than about togetherness. The spectators, too, are drawn into this web. Cheering, clapping, or simply watching creates collective memory, binding participants and observers in a shared moment of belonging. One of the most powerful aspects of play as social bond is its ability to level differences. People of varying ages, backgrounds, and abilities can share the same game. A child can play chess with an elder. A group of strangers can join a pickup soccer match. A community can gather to play music in playful rivalry. In these moments, identity shifts. Players are no longer only their roles in society. parent, worker, student, stranger, but co-participants in a shared world of rules and laughter. The game creates equality, even if only for a moment. Modern research shows that play triggers the release of oxytocin, sometimes called the bonding chemical, in the brain. This substance fosters feelings of trust and closeness. It is the same chemical that surges during affectionate touch, reinforcing the idea that play is not only fun but deeply social. A handshake before a game, a pat on the back after, or the simple act of smiling at an opponent reinforces the sense of connection. Even rivalry, which might seem divisive, strengthens social ties. Friends who compete often feel closer for having shared the experience. Siblings who wrestle on the floor may argue in the moment, but carry those playful battles into adulthood as memories of closeness. Communities that rally around contests build solidarity, turning individual games into collective identity. Play as social bond reminds us that competition is not about separation but about connection. It transforms rivalry into relationship, turning laughter and struggle into shared memory. It shows that we do not compete simply to measure ourselves against others, but to feel ourselves alongside others, to belong, to participate, to be part of something larger than the self. In the end, the game is never only about winning. It is about weaving the fabric of togetherness, one playful contest at a time. Play is light-hearted, yet it often carries a serious undercurrent: status. From the earliest days of humanity, contests have been stages where individuals prove their abilities, not through violence or dominance, but through skill displayed within rules. Winning a game, even a simple one, can elevate a person's standing in the eyes of others. In this way, competition has long served as a safe substitute for conflict, a way of distributing honor without spilling blood. Anthropologists note that in many traditional societies, games acted as arenas where status could be negotiated. A hunter who could throw the farthest spear or a runner who could complete the longest course was admired, their skill acknowledged publicly. But unlike direct conflict, these contests preserved the bonds of the group. The victor gained esteem, yet the loser did not suffer exclusion. Both roles were essential. One demonstrated achievement, the other demonstrated resilience. This pursuit of recognition remains visible in children. On playgrounds, the child who climbs highest, runs fastest, or wins the game of tag is momentarily admired. These flashes of status are fleeting, but they reveal a deep truth. Competition shapes hierarchy gently, without the harshness of lasting division. Tomorrow, roles may shift, and someone else may rise to the top. In this way, play teaches that status is not fixed, but fluid, earned and re-earned through effort and participation. In adulthood, the same dynamic unfolds in more formalized ways. Sports elevate athletes to positions of admiration, not only for their victories but also for their grace, discipline, and endurance. Within workplaces, playful contests or challenges can serve as safe outlets for ambition, allowing individuals to demonstrate initiative without destabilizing the group. Even friendly debates among peers provide opportunities to shine, to show cleverness or knowledge, to earn respect. Play channels the desire for recognition into pathways that build rather than break community. Crucially, status in play is often tied not only to outcome but also to fairness. A victor who cheats may win a match but lose respect. A player who demonstrates generosity, sharing the ball, showing restraint, or lifting up an opponent, often gains admiration even in defeat. This reveals something profound. Play teaches that recognition is not given solely for triumph but for integrity. Status is measured not just by skill, but by the manner in which skill is displayed. History is full of examples of play entwined with status. In ancient Rome, gladiatorial games, though violent by today's standards, were stages for courage and endurance. In medieval Europe, tournaments allowed knights to display prowess, earning prestige without the destruction of war. In indigenous cultures, games like lacrosse or wrestling often served as rites of passage, proving readiness for adult roles. In each case, the contest carried symbolic weight far beyond the score. It showed who could rise to the challenge with honor. Even in modern life, where battles for survival are less immediate, the dynamic remains. A tennis champion earns global admiration, A trivia winner earns local applause. A child who builds the tallest tower of blocks is praised by peers and parents alike. The joy of play is personal, but the recognition it brings is social. Status flows from the act of competing, reinforcing both individual confidence and group respect. Play and status are intertwined because humans, like many animals, are social beings. Hierarchies exist, but through play they can be softened, tested, and shifted without lasting harm. Competition provides a stage where recognition can be earned and shared, where ambition finds safe expression, and where the bonds of community remain intact. At its best, the pursuit of status through play is not about domination but about inspiration. The victor shows what is possible, the group celebrates achievement, and the cycle continues, each striving in turn. Through games, humanity found a way to honor ambition while preserving harmony, a balance of pride and humility held together by the gentle rules of play. Not all contests depend on speed, strength, or endurance. Some unfold entirely within the mind, drawing upon foresight, memory, and imagination. These are the games of strategy, where victory is not won through muscle but through patience and calculation. From chessboards and riddles to storytelling duels and complex board games, strategic play has long been a theater for human intellect, sharpening abilities that extend far beyond the boundaries of the game itself. In every culture, traces of these contests can be found. Ancient Mesopotamia gave us the royal game of a blend of chance and decision-making etched into clay tablets. In India, early forms of chess evolved as metaphors for war, teaching rulers to consider the consequences of every move. In Africa, Mancala games, played with stones and carved boards, trained memory, arithmetic, and planning. Each of these traditions reveals that strategy games were not idle distractions but tools of preparation, rehearsals for the kinds of choices required in leadership, survival, and cooperation. The essence of these games lies in anticipation. A good player learns not only to act but to foresee. Every move is a hypothesis, every pause a moment of prediction. What will the opponent do? What will the field look like 5 moves ahead? This constant rehearsal of possibilities strengthens the mind's capacity to imagine futures. It trains the ability to hold multiple outcomes at once, to weigh risks against rewards, to remain patient when the temptation to rush arises. Children display this process instinctively. When they hide during a game of hide and seek, they think about what others might see, what paths they might take, and how long they can remain still. When they invent riddles or verbal challenges, they practice memory and logic, crafting problems that test one another's wit. These playful acts seem simple, but they build the scaffolding of critical thinking. They teach that every choice has a consequence. Every strategy must adapt to circumstance. Strategic games also carry social lessons. To compete in them is to recognize that one's mind exists within a shared space of ideas. Victory depends not only on one's own plan but on anticipating the opponent's, respecting their intelligence, and acknowledging that they too are thinking, adapting, striving. This recognition deepens empathy, for it requires stepping into another's perspective, imagining not just what they might do but why. Even the element of suspense in strategic games has value. Waiting for an opponent's move, weighing one's own response, teaches patience and composure. Unlike physical contests, where adrenaline drives quick reactions, strategy demands stillness. It rewards the ability to sit with uncertainty, to resist impulsive choices, to allow thought to unfold slowly. These are qualities as useful in life as they are on a board. Modern science confirms what experience long suggested. Engaging in games of strategy stimulates regions of the brain tied to planning, memory, and problem-solving. People who play them regularly show greater flexibility in thinking and sharper decision-making in other areas of life. This may be one reason why such games have endured for thousands of years, passed from generation to generation, as both amusement and education. Perhaps most striking is how strategy games, though competitive, often end in mutual admiration. Players recognize the skill and foresight of their opponents, appreciating clever moves even when those moves work against them. The contest sharpens both sides, leaving neither diminished. In this sense, victory and defeat matter less than the shared experience of thought in motion. Games of strategy remind us that competition is not only physical but intellectual, not only about striving but about imagining. They reveal that the mind itself can be an arena of play, where rivalry becomes rehearsal for creativity, patience, and empathy. In every move on a board, every riddle shared across a fire, every puzzle pondered late into the night, the gentle science of competition unfolds quietly, shaping thought while disguising itself as joy. Not every contest is decided by skill alone. Many games include an element of chance, a roll of dice, a shuffled deck, a coin flipped into the air. These small injections of randomness remind us of a profound truth. Life itself is never fully predictable. By blending mastery with luck, games mirror existence, where preparation matters deeply, yet fortune still plays its hand. Archaeologists have uncovered dice carved from bone dating back more than 5,000 years. Across continents, humans invented ways to invite uncertainty into play: pebbles cast on the ground, sticks marked with signs, shells used as counters. Why would people choose to surrender part of a contest to chance? The answer lies in the thrill of uncertainty. The unknown excites the mind, quickens the heart, and binds participants together in suspense. For a moment, all are equal, waiting for fate to declare itself. The role of chance has another benefit. It levels the playing field. In pure contests of strength or skill, the most practiced usually triumphs. But in games that incorporate luck, even the less experienced can win. A child may defeat an elder in a dice game, not because of superior strategy, but because fortune smiled that day. These reversals make games inclusive, ensuring that everyone has a reason to return. They keep contests alive, preventing them from becoming predictable or discouraging. Children grasp this instinctively. When they decide who goes first by flipping a coin or drawing straws, they are not merely assigning turns. They are practicing fairness, acknowledging that some decisions must rest outside human control. In doing so, they accept the role of chance as a neutral arbiter. Adults, too, rely on this principle. Lotteries, raffles, and randomized draws echo the same practice, tools that remove personal bias and introduce impartiality, even if only symbolically. Researchers studying play have observed how chance-based games affect emotions. Anticipation rises before a card is revealed. Suspense builds as dice tumble. Relief or disappointment follows the outcome. These fluctuations stimulate the body, raising excitement but in a safe frame. The highs and lows of luck provide practice in resilience, celebrating fortune with humility, enduring loss with grace. They teach players to live with uncertainty, to adapt without resentment, to understand that control is never absolute. Chance also encourages creativity. When luck disrupts a carefully planned strategy, players must improvise, finding new paths to victory or adapting quickly to defeat. In this way, randomness forces flexibility. It prevents rigidity, reminding us that even the best-laid plans must sometimes bend. In life, as in games, chance events often redirect paths, opening possibilities that skill alone could never create. Culturally, games of chance have always carried symbolic meaning. In some societies, casting lots was tied to divination, believed to reveal the will of unseen powers. In others, dice games were central to festivals, embodying the unpredictability of harvest or weather. While we may not see such cosmic significance today, the echo remains. Every coin toss before a match, every shuffled deck at a card table, carries with it the weight of centuries of ritualized uncertainty. What makes the role of chance so compelling is that it reminds us of humility. No matter how skilled, no matter how prepared, the outcome is never fully ours to command. Play teaches us to live with this truth in miniature. We learn to smile when luck deserts us, to laugh when fortune is absurd, to celebrate when randomness delivers joy. In this way, games become rehearsals for life's larger uncertainties, offering safe practice in the art of surrender. The role of chance, then, is not a flaw in competition but one of its greatest gifts. It keeps contests fair, inclusive, exciting, and endlessly repeatable. It teaches patience, resilience, and creativity. Above all, it reminds us that striving matters, but so too does acceptance, that in the great game of life, fortune and effort dance together, and the joy lies not in control but in the embrace of the unknown. Though the forms vary endlessly, competition is universal. Every culture, from the frozen expanses of the Arctic to the deserts of Africa, has devised games that reflect its environment, values, and way of life. In these diverse contests, we see both the creativity of humanity and the deep similarities that unite us. Among the Inuit of the Arctic, children traditionally practice strength and endurance through tugging games and contests of balance. These were not merely diversions but vital rehearsals for survival in a harsh landscape, where stamina and coordination could mean the difference between life and death. In parts of Africa, Mancala games, played with stones and carved boards, trained calculation, memory, and foresight, skills essential for managing resources in environments where planning determined prosperity. In Japan, the ritual of sumo wrestling evolved as more than sport. It was a cultural performance tied to religion, purification, and the honoring of tradition. Across the Pacific, in Polynesian cultures, contests of navigation and canoe racing celebrated mastery of the sea, embedding skill into ritual and identity. In Mesoamerica, the ball game known as Ola Malistli was both play and sacred ceremony, embodying myths of creation and cosmic struggle. Victory and defeat held meanings beyond the score, reflecting beliefs about the balance between life and death, light and darkness. European cultures, too, carried contests as mirrors of society. Medieval tournaments allowed knights to display martial skill in controlled form, channeling the violence of battle into ritualized spectacle. Folk games, like wrestling in village greens or races at harvest festivals, bound communities together, turning ordinary effort into celebration. Even riddles and storytelling duels, common in oral traditions across the continent, revealed that competition could be as much about wit as about physical strength. Despite these differences, common threads emerge. Almost everywhere, running, wrestling, and chasing appear in some form, echoing the universal human body. Games of chance, whether dice, shells, or cards, appear across continents, reflecting the shared human fascination with uncertainty. Strategy games, too, surface independently in distant cultures, from chess in India to Go in China, from Mancala in Africa to drafts in Europe. These parallels suggest that the impulse to compete is not cultural accident but part of our shared inheritance, arising wherever humans gather. Competition across cultures also reflects values unique to each society. In some, contests emphasize individual glory, highlighting strength, speed, or cleverness. In others, team games dominate, reflecting collective identity and cooperation. Some cultures celebrate endurance, others cunning, others grace. By studying games, anthropologists can glimpse what each culture prizes most deeply. A society of warriors celebrates courage in combat games. A community of farmers prizes endurance and patience. A seafaring culture honors navigation and balance. Modern globalization has not erased these traditions but layered them. Local games persist alongside international sports, each carrying its own weight of meaning. Children may play traditional games in villages while also watching global competitions on screens. In this mix, we see the resilience of play. It adapts, evolves, yet always remains central to identity. What makes this diversity so powerful is that it reveals both difference and unity. To watch a game in another culture is to glimpse into its values, its fears, its aspirations. Yet beneath the surface, we recognize the same laughter, the same anticipation, the same rhythm of striving. A child in Africa moving stones across a Mancala board is not so different from a child in Europe moving pawns across a chessboard. Both are rehearsing patience, strategy, and resilience. Both are practicing life through play. Competition across cultures teaches us that games are more than diversions. They are expressions of who we are, shaped by environment, yet rooted in something universal. They remind us that while our histories differ, our impulse to play binds us together, carrying forward the gentle science of competition in countless forms across the world. Not all contests are fought with fists, feet, or strategies on a board. Many unfold in the realm of sound and movement, where voices, rhythms, and bodies become instruments of playful rivalry. Across cultures and centuries, humans have used music and dance not only to celebrate, but also to compete. Contests that sharpen creativity, build community, and transform rivalry into harmony. Picture two drummers in an African village, seated opposite each other, hands striking skins in alternating patterns. One builds a rhythm, the other responds, weaving complexity until the beats converge in dazzling intensity. The contest is playful, yet each performer seeks to outdo the other in speed, control, and invention. The result is not discord but beauty, for their rivalry produces a richer rhythm than either could create alone. Here, competition becomes collaboration, each opponent pushing the other to greater heights. Similar traditions appear worldwide. In the Caribbean, calypso singers once engaged in lyrical duels, improvising verses that teased and challenged one another. In the Nordic sagas, poets competed in verse, weaving intricate rhymes to win respect and admiration. In hip-hop culture, freestyle rap battles continue this lineage, where words become weapons and wit is the measure of victory. In each case, the rivalry electrifies the art form, channeling ambition into expression rather than conflict. Dance, too, has long been a stage for playful contest. From Native American powwow competitions to modern breakdance battles, dancers face one another not to harm but to astonish. Every leap, spin, or stomp is both a challenge and an offering, daring the opponent to match or surpass. The crowd, drawn into the spectacle, becomes part of the rhythm, amplifying the energy with cheers and applause. The line between rivalry and performance dissolves, leaving only shared delight. What is striking about these contests is how joy saturates them. Even when the rivalry is fierce, smiles, laughter, and mutual respect dominate. Unlike war, where victory means loss for the other, musical and dance competitions create shared triumphs. The audience rejoices in both performers, and the participants often leave with admiration rather than animosity. Rivalry becomes a pathway to connection. Science offers insight into why these contests feel so powerful. When people engage in rhythmic play, whether drumming, singing, or dancing, their bodies synchronize, heart rates align, brain waves show parallel patterns, and a sense of unity emerges. This synchrony fosters belonging, making rivalry less about opposition and more about shared experience. The very act of creating rhythm together blurs the line between competitors, reminding us that even in contest, we are deeply connected. Music and dance competitions also provide safe outlets for ambition. To win admiration through artistry is to rise in status without violence. A singer's clever verse, a drummer's daring beat, or a dancer's bold move can earn respect as surely as physical strength. These contests expand the meaning of skill, showing that creativity itself can be a form of power. Even in modern life, echoes of this tradition remain. Television shows that feature dance-offs, singing competitions, or talent battles draw millions of viewers, not because the stakes are life or death, but because the thrill of rivalry, fused with creativity, is irresistible. We delight in watching individuals stretch their abilities, in seeing rivals push one another toward brilliance. The contest entertains, but it also inspires, reminding us of the endless capacity of human imagination. The music of rivalry teaches us that competition need not divide. It can amplify beauty, deepen connection, and transform ambition into art. When two voices soar against each other, when two bodies move in playful defiance, when two rhythms clash and merge, rivalry becomes duet. In these moments, competition reveals its gentlest truth, that striving together can create harmony greater than any victory alone. Play and conflict are close relatives, separated by a boundary that can be fragile. A playful shove can feel like a joke, but pressed too hard, it becomes aggression. A teasing remark can spark laughter, but if misjudged, it cuts like insult. Games thrive precisely in this space between harmony and hostility, walking a delicate line where joy is possible but danger never fully disappears. Children reveal this tension clearly. Two friends may be laughing as they wrestle, tumbling on the grass, but a single shove that lands too roughly can bring tears. The game pauses, and in that moment, all must decide whether the frame of play still holds. If apologies come, laughter may return, and the game continues. If anger replaces trust, the contest dissolves into quarrel. This fragile shift shows that play depends not only on rules but on mutual understanding. Without trust, competition becomes conflict. Animals display the same dynamic. Young wolves nip and chase each other, signaling with exaggerated gestures that the fight is not serious. But if one ignores these signals, the play can quickly escalate into real hostility, forcing others to intervene or withdraw. Ethologists describe this as the play frame, an invisible border agreed upon by all participants. The frame allows vigorous testing of skills while preventing true harm. Yet, because it rests on trust, it is always vulnerable to collapse. Human societies, aware of this danger, have long created safeguards to protect play. Rituals of fairness, bows before duels, handshakes before matches, referees to enforce rules, exist precisely to keep rivalry from turning into violence. These structures remind participants that the contest is bounded, that passion must remain within agreed limits. When the rules are respected, play flourishes. When they are broken, games unravel, and conflict emerges. Part of the thrill of competition comes from this tension. The heart races because there is risk, not risk of life and death, but of pride, of status, of belonging. We care about the outcome, and that care makes rivalry meaningful. Yet it also heightens emotion, making anger or frustration possible if limits are crossed. Play is powerful because it awakens real feelings within an artificial frame. To sustain it, players must hold both truths at once. The game matters deeply, and yet it is not life itself. Modern sports provide countless examples. A heated soccer match may see tempers flare, players arguing with referees, crowds shouting with intensity. The line between spirited rivalry and destructive conflict hovers constantly. Most of the time, rituals and rules hold firm, pulling emotions back into the play frame. But occasionally, when trust fails, fights erupt, reminding us how thin that line can be. The very passion that makes games exciting is also what threatens to undo them. On a smaller scale, even board games among friends can illustrate this boundary. A dispute over rules, a perception of unfairness, can sour the mood. Yet when handled with laughter, the same dispute becomes part of the fun. The difference lies not in the game itself, but in the willingness of players to preserve trust, to protect the fragile contract that makes rivalry possible. The thin line between play and conflict is not a flaw but a reminder of the power of competition. It shows that rivalry awakens emotions close to those of real struggle, making it a potent rehearsal for life. To play is to practice managing passion, to test how far one can go without breaking bonds. It is to learn restraint, empathy, and reconciliation. When the line is respected, competition remains a source of growth and joy. When it is crossed, it reminds us of the responsibility that comes with rivalry. At its heart, play's greatest lesson may be this: conflict and cooperation are never far apart. To keep rivalry gentle requires vigilance, respect, and trust. And when that trust is honored, play becomes one of life's most powerful teachers, transforming the raw energy of conflict into the soft light of connection. At first, it may seem strange to speak of joy and defeat. Losing appears, on the surface, to be a disappointment, a reminder of limits, a moment where another surpasses us. Yet one of the quiet truths of play is that losing, far from being failure, carries its own gifts. In the gentle frame of competition, defeat becomes teacher, motivator, and connector. The sting of loss is softened by the very rules that make the game safe, leaving room for growth and even delight. Consider a child playing a board game. When the last piece is claimed by another, or when their carefully built strategy crumbles, frustration may flash across their face. Yet soon, the moment passes, another round begins, and the child eagerly takes part again. Over time, these repeated defeats shape resilience. Losing teaches that disappointment is temporary, that effort can be renewed, that tomorrow offers another chance. This is one of play's greatest lessons. That loss is not the end of the story, but an invitation to begin again. In many traditional societies, losing carried its own honor. Anthropologists describe rituals where participants bowed to victors, not in humiliation but in recognition of the game itself. The act of acknowledging defeat showed respect for the rules and for the opponent's effort. In this way, losing was a form of participation, proof that one had joined the contest in good faith. The dignity of loss ensured that games could continue, preventing rivalry from souring into resentment. Even in modern sports, where stakes may seem high, there are countless examples of losing being met with grace. Athletes who congratulate opponents after a match, who smile despite defeat, often earn as much admiration as the victors. Their composure demonstrates courage and humility, traits that competition, at its best, cultivates as much as strength or speed. Viewers watching such moments are reminded that the spirit of the game is larger than the scoreboard. From the perspective of the mind and body, losing has distinct benefits. Studies show that while victory floods reward pathways, loss stimulates reflection. The brain begins to analyze, what could I have done differently? Which choices led to this outcome? These questions fuel adaptation, ensuring that future attempts are sharper. In this way, defeat acts as a compass, guiding players toward growth they might never achieve through easy victories alone. There is also joy in the shared experience of loss. In team games, when defeat is collective, bonds often deepen. Teammates console one another, share stories of effort, and resolve to try again. The pain of losing becomes a unifying thread, binding individuals into a stronger whole. Even in solitary games, defeat creates stories to share. The almost win, the surprising twist, the unexpected outcome. These stories, told with laughter later, become memories as valuable as triumphs. Children often capture this paradox most clearly. They may burst into tears when they lose, only to laugh moments later when invited to play again. Their willingness to return, again and again, shows the resilience that play fosters. Losing is folded into joy because the game itself is bigger than any single outcome. The act of playing, of striving, of belonging, remains the true treasure. The joy of losing lies not in the moment of defeat, but in what follows. The resilience, the learning, the renewed attempt, the strengthened bond. It teaches humility without humiliation, patience without despair. It reveals that life itself will bring setbacks, and that the ability to rise again is as valuable as the ability to win. In the gentle science of competition, loss is not failure but transformation. It softens pride, sharpens skill, and deepens connection. To lose gracefully is to honor the game, to respect the opponent, and to strengthen oneself for what comes next. And in that recognition, losing holds its own quiet joy, the joy of becoming more human, more resilient, more whole. At first glance, competition and cooperation seem like opposites. One suggests rivalry, the push to outdo another. The other suggests unity, the effort to work together. Yet within play, these two forces are never truly separate. Every contest, no matter how fierce, rests on a foundation of cooperation. Without it, the game itself could not exist. Consider the most basic race. Two children decide to see who can reach the tree first. Before they run, they must agree on the starting point, the finish line, and the rules. No shortcuts, no pushing, only running. This agreement is cooperation. It creates the frame within which competition can unfold. When they laugh at the end, regardless of who won, they reaffirm that shared understanding. The rivalry exists only because both chose to honor the same rules. Animals display this paradox as well. Wolves at play bite and chase, yet their exaggerated gestures signal restraint. They cooperate in maintaining the play frame, ensuring that no harm comes. Primates who wrestle return to grooming each other after the contest, their mock battles strengthening social trust. Even in apparent conflict, cooperation ensures the bond remains intact. Human games magnify this principle. Sports depend on referees, written rules, and codes of conduct. Players agree to respect boundaries, to stop when whistles blow, to trust that the same rules apply to all. Even the fiercest rivals on the field cooperate in sustaining the fairness that makes the match meaningful. Without this cooperation, the contest would collapse into chaos or violence. It is this hidden collaboration that makes competition possible, binding opponents together in shared trust. This paradox extends into culture. Traditional games, whether foot races, wrestling matches, or board contests, were often embedded in festivals and rituals. Communities gathered not to divide but to unite, channeling ambition into safe forms. The cooperation extended beyond players to spectators, musicians, and storytellers, all participating in preserving the game. The contest was rivalry in action, but unity in spirit. Psychologists note that this duality provides one of play's greatest lessons. In life, as in games, we constantly balance competition with cooperation. Colleagues may compete for recognition, yet they must collaborate for the success of their work. Nations may vie for advantage, yet they agree to treaties and rules that prevent destruction. Play rehearses this balance, teaching from an early age that rivalry without cooperation is unsustainable. Even at the level of the mind, this paradox appears. During games, the brain's reward systems respond not only to personal achievement, but also to fairness and shared effort. Studies show that people often experience pleasure when opponents perform well, provided the game is fair. This response reflects the cooperative joy embedded in rivalry, admiration for skill, respect for effort, and recognition of shared participation. One of the most moving examples of cooperation within competition is the ritual of respect between rivals. A handshake before and after a match, a bow between martial artists, an embrace after a long race. These gestures affirm that the contest was never about destruction but about shared growth. They acknowledge the opponent not as enemy but as partner in play. The cooperative side of competition reminds us that games are not only about winning but about sustaining trust. They show us that rivalry can sharpen skill while deepening respect, that striving against one another can strengthen bonds rather than weaken them. In the end, competition without cooperation collapses, but together they create something enduring, a frame where ambition, fairness, and joy coexist. This paradox is not a contradiction but a harmony. It reveals that life itself is built on the same pattern, individuals striving for their own growth while depending on one another to sustain the whole. Play, in its gentle science, offers us a glimpse of this truth, teaching that cooperation and competition are not enemies but partners in the great game of being alive. Competition is rarely confined to the players alone. From the earliest contests in human history to the grand arenas of today, games have always drawn watchers, people who may not participate directly but who become essential to the meaning of the event. The role of the spectator transforms competition from private rivalry into shared experience, magnifying emotions and turning play into a story that belongs to many. Imagine an ancient village gathering at dusk. Two runners stand at one end of a clearing, ready to sprint toward a marked stone. Around them, neighbors gather, children perched on parents' shoulders, elders leaning on staffs, friends shouting encouragement. When the race begins, the crowd gasps, cheers, and laughs together. The competition is no longer only between the runners. It is carried in the voices and hearts of everyone present. The runners feel their energy amplified, drawn forward by the rhythm of the crowd, while the spectators experience their own joy, mirroring the exertion of the race. Modern research into how the mind responds to watching games reveals something fascinating. When spectators see a player leap, struggle, or triumph, their own brains echo the action. Muscles tense slightly, hearts beat faster, emotions rise and fall with the rhythm of the contest. This phenomenon explains why even those who have never kicked a ball or solved a puzzle themselves can feel so invested in the outcome. The audience participates through empathy, their bodies rehearsing the game alongside the players. Spectators also give contests their social weight. A victory in private may bring satisfaction, but a victory witnessed by many carries recognition. Ancient Olympians were celebrated not only for their skill but for the way their triumphs reflected the glory of their cities. Local champions in villages earned respect because their communities saw and acknowledged their strength. Even in childhood, the cheers of friends watching a race make the finish line sweeter. Recognition, amplified by spectators, is part of what makes competition meaningful. Yet the role of the spectator goes beyond admiration. By gathering to watch, communities weave themselves together, a shared gasp at a close call, a collective sigh at a loss, a cheer that rises in unison. These moments create unity. People who may differ in language, wealth, or background find themselves bound in the same emotional rhythm. For the length of the contest, they are one audience, their voices blending into a chorus of belonging. There is also a deeper function to spectatorship. It turns play into ritual. When communities gather, they create ceremonies around the game, opening songs, chants, applause, closing celebrations. These rituals give continuity, ensuring that contests are remembered and repeated. The spectators do not only watch, they preserve the meaning of the game for the group, embedding it in collective memory. Even in solitude, echoes of this role remain. When a person recounts a game they played, sharing stories of near victories and defeats, they transform absent listeners into spectators of memory. The act of telling the story ensures that play is never only private but always part of something larger. In modern times, this role has expanded beyond anything our ancestors imagined. Stadiums hold tens of thousands, while broadcasts carry games to millions. Yet the essence is unchanged. Whether it is a handful of villagers watching a race or millions glued to a screen, spectators amplify competition, turning it into a shared human drama. The spectator's role teaches us that competition is never only about those who play. It is about the community that gathers, the collective emotions that swell and recede, the shared memories that endure long after the contest ends. In every cheer, every clap, every quiet nod of appreciation, spectators remind us that rivalry is also celebration, and that play, when witnessed, becomes a bond that ties us all together. For competition to endure, it must rest on trust. Without fairness, games collapse into quarrels, and rivalry loses its joy. To safeguard this trust, human societies have always created rituals of fairness, gestures, symbols, and rules that remind participants the contest is bounded, respected, and shared. These rituals may seem simple, but they hold profound power, turning raw rivalry into sustainable play. Consider the coin toss before a match. With a simple flip, chance decides who begins, removing argument and setting the stage for fairness. Or think of the handshake before and after a game, a small gesture affirming that whatever happens in between, respect remains intact. These rituals act like invisible fences, marking the difference between conflict and play. Archaeological records reveal that fairness rituals are ancient. In Mesopotamia, rules for board games were carved into stone tablets, ensuring that every player understood the same boundaries. In Greece, Olympic contests began with oaths sworn to honor the gods and obey the rules. In indigenous societies, games were often accompanied by songs or dances that sanctified the play, reminding all that competition was a sacred act, not merely chance for hostility. These traditions protected the fragile frame of play, making sure rivalry did not spill into discord. Fairness rituals are also essential for participants themselves. By bowing before a duel or lining up before a race, players center their focus, preparing their minds to enter the play frame. The ritual becomes a threshold, separating ordinary life from the extraordinary space of competition. Within this space, different rules apply, rules of balance, of fairness, of respect. Crossing back out of the frame, the rituals close the contest, returning players to ordinary life with bonds preserved. Children invent their own versions of these practices instinctively. Before a race, they call out "ready, set, go," ensuring everyone starts fairly. During games, they pause to renegotiate rules, often loudly and with laughter, until agreement is reached. These improvised rituals are as essential as the games themselves. Without them, the play would dissolve in accusations. With them, even disputes become part of the fun, teaching negotiation and trust. Modern sports have professionalized these rituals. Referees, umpires, scoreboards, and replay systems exist to guarantee fairness. Whistles mark beginnings and ends, uniforms standardize appearance, and penalties correct violations. These structures are not luxuries. They are the backbone of competition. They ensure that when victory comes, it is respected, and when defeat arrives, it is accepted. Without such fairness, contests lose legitimacy, and rivalry curdles into resentment. Yet fairness rituals are not only about rules, they are about dignity. When players exchange jerseys after a match, or when martial artists bow deeply before and after sparring, they signal something profound, that the opponent is not an enemy, but a partner. This respect is as important as the contest itself. It shows that competition is not destruction but collaboration, a shared effort to test one another within boundaries that preserve connection. At their heart, rituals of fairness are reminders of the fragile line between play and conflict. They protect the joy of rivalry, ensuring that striving remains meaningful rather than harmful. They also mirror larger truths about society. Just as communities require laws and norms to function, games require fairness rituals to thrive. In both, justice is not only about outcomes but about the processes that sustain trust. To watch a handshake before a match, or to hear children chant before they race, is to glimpse this quiet wisdom. These small acts carry centuries of tradition, binding rivals together in shared respect. They remind us that fairness is not an afterthought but the very foundation of play. Without it, competition falters. With it, rivalry becomes not just possible, but beautiful. Beneath the joy of play and the thrill of competition lies a quiet orchestra of chemistry and signaling in the brain. It is this hidden activity that explains why games feel irresistible, why striving excites us, and why rivalry draws us back again and again. Competition is not only a cultural phenomenon but also a biological one, tied deeply to the systems that govern motivation, pleasure, and resilience. When anticipation builds before a contest, the moment before dice are rolled, before a race begins, before a move is revealed, the brain releases dopamine. This messenger sharpens focus and creates a sense of expectation, as if the future holds a spark waiting to ignite. The same pathways respond when we anticipate food or warmth, suggesting that competition taps into primal systems designed to keep us alive. The thrill we feel before a game mirrors the thrill of waiting for a hunt to succeed or for fruit to ripen on the branch. During play, as effort unfolds, endorphins help soften the strain of exertion. They flood the body with calm, allowing us to push further, to persist longer, to find delight in effort itself. This is why running in a race or wrestling with a friend feels exhilarating rather than exhausting, why even a strenuous contest can leave us glowing rather than drained. These natural chemicals transform effort into joy. Win or lose, the brain learns from competition. A victory lights up reward pathways, embedding a sense of satisfaction that motivates us to return. A loss, though it stings, engages reflective processes, prompting us to consider strategies, choices, and outcomes. In this way, defeat stimulates growth as surely as triumph. Both results fuel the cycle of play, ensuring that games remain enticing no matter the outcome. Researchers studying these reward systems note that they are not purely selfish. The brain also responds to fairness and cooperation. When players perceive a game as just, when rules are respected, reward centers activate even more strongly. This suggests that the joy of play is not only about personal victory, but also about shared trust. We feel pleasure not only when we succeed, but when the contest itself is honorable. This biology explains why play is so persistent across life. Children return to games again and again because their brains are wired to find delight in repetition. Each contest feels new, each anticipation resets the circuits. Adults too continue to seek games, puzzles, and sports because the reward systems remain active throughout life. Play is not something we outgrow, it is something our bodies continually encourage us to pursue. The reward circuits also explain why play is such a powerful tool for learning. When joy accompanies effort, the lessons sink deeper. A child practicing counting through a game of marbles or strategy through a game of cards learns more effectively because the brain's reward system makes the experience memorable. Joy binds the lesson to memory. Even watching games can stir these circuits. Spectators feel suspense, anticipation, and relief as if they were players themselves. The brain echoes the rhythms of the contest, allowing people to participate emotionally in play they do not physically perform. This shared activation is part of what makes sports and games so captivating for entire communities. The brain's reward circuits remind us that competition is not just cultural performance but biological design. It feels good to strive because nature ensures that it does. It feels meaningful to play fairly because our brains reward fairness. It feels worthwhile to try again, even after loss, because resilience itself is pleasurable when tied to play. In this way, competition reveals one of life's most elegant truths, that striving and joy are not separate but intertwined. The chemistry of the brain ensures that effort is rewarded, that growth is encouraged, and that play, far from frivolous, is one of the most powerful engines of human flourishing. To watch the games of a society is to glimpse its soul. Play, far from being trivial, reflects the deepest rhythms of culture, its values, its fears, its hopes, and its ways of life. Every contest, no matter how small, carries the imprint of the community that created it. In this way, play becomes a mirror, showing us who we are and what we cherish. In agrarian societies, games often celebrate endurance. Races stretch across fields, tugging games echo the labor of harvest, and contests of strength resemble the lifting and carrying that define daily life. These competitions are not random amusements. They are shaped by the landscape and by the work required to survive. The same is true in cultures bound to the sea. In Polynesia, canoe races honored mastery of waves and navigation. Skill at sea was not only practical, but sacred, and play reflected this reverence. In cultures with warrior traditions, games often emphasize combat. Wrestling, archery, and stick fighting are ritualized echoes of battle, teaching courage and skill while preventing unnecessary bloodshed. In other societies, wit and imagination rise to the forefront. Storytelling duels, riddling contests, or poetic improvisations reveal the value placed on words, creativity, and memory. Each culture creates the contests that embody what it considers most vital. Even children's games hold this reflective quality. In crowded cities, children invent street games that make use of narrow alleys, walls, and found objects. In rural areas, their games expand into wide-open fields. These patterns reveal how the environment shapes imagination, just as surely as geography shapes architecture or food. A chalk drawing on pavement, a ball tossed in a dusty courtyard, a chase through forest paths, each is an expression of place and circumstance. Play also reflects belief systems. Ritual games often mirror myths and spiritual practices. The Mesoamerican ball game echoed cosmic stories of light and darkness, life and death. In Japan, sumo wrestling carried Shinto rituals of purification and blessing. In Europe, harvest festivals included contests that symbolized fertility, renewal, and the turning of seasons. Games are not just diversions, they are performances of worldview. Modern culture continues this pattern, though sometimes in subtler ways. Global sports spectacles like the Olympics or the World Cup reveal ideals of unity, excellence, and national pride. Board games and video games reflect current anxieties and dreams, from managing scarce resources to exploring futuristic worlds. Even the rise of esports mirrors society's fascination with technology, networks, and digital skill. Play adapts to the age, yet always reveals what that age values most. The mirror of play is not always flattering. Games can reveal inequalities, exclusions, or obsessions within a culture. Who is allowed to play, who is excluded, and what kinds of contests are celebrated, all tell us about social structures. At times, play reflects divisions as much as unity. Yet even here, it provides insight, offering a way to examine society's priorities and struggles. What makes play such a powerful mirror is its honesty. People may disguise their values in words, but their games often reveal them plainly. To study play is to study culture in its most open form, where joy and rivalry bring hidden truths to the surface. Play as culture's mirror reminds us that games are never just games. They are reflections of how we live, what we honor, and what we fear. They tell us the story of humanity, not in textbooks or monuments, but in laughter, in rivalry, in the quiet seriousness of play. When we watch or join a contest, we are not only passing time, we are looking into a mirror that shows us who we are. Throughout history, rivalry has been one of the sparks of progress. When individuals or groups strive not only to succeed but to surpass one another, invention often follows. Competition, though framed as a contest between people, frequently becomes a contest with limits themselves, a push against what has not yet been achieved. In this way, play and rivalry have driven discoveries, works of art, and leaps of imagination that might never have emerged without the gentle pressure of comparison. Consider the world of science. Again and again, researchers racing toward the same goal have accelerated discovery. Rivalries over who could chart the stars more precisely, who could unlock the secrets of electricity, who could sequence the code of life. These contests often led to breakthroughs faster than solitary work would have allowed. While competition sometimes bred tension, it also created urgency, ensuring that ideas did not linger in silence but were tested, refined, and shared. Art bears the same mark. During the Renaissance, artists in Florence and Venice competed fiercely for commissions. Painters sought to outdo one another in mastery of light and perspective. Sculptors pushed marble into ever more daring forms. This rivalry did not diminish beauty, it multiplied it. Each new creation was a response to another, a dialogue of ambition that elevated art as a whole. Even in music, composers often wrote in response to rivals, creating works that surpassed old standards and set new ones. In sports, innovation is constant, born of the desire to win. New techniques, training methods, and strategies emerge as athletes strive to outmatch one another. The high jump, once performed in a straightforward leap, was revolutionized by the Fosbury flop, a technique invented in the pursuit of victory. Innovation spread quickly, changing the sport forever. Here, competition became not only a measure of talent but a catalyst for creative reinvention. Technology, too, has advanced through rivalry. The race to the moon, driven by national competition, pushed science and engineering into realms previously thought impossible. Rival companies, striving for faster machines or better devices, created innovations that reshaped everyday life. Though sometimes criticized for fostering rivalry, these contests often propelled progress, creating tools and discoveries that benefited all. Even in everyday life, small competitions spark innovation. Friends playing a game of improvisation may invent a new twist on rules. Children competing to build the tallest tower may discover new ways to balance blocks. In workplaces, teams challenging one another can produce creative solutions more quickly than isolated effort. The impulse to outdo is also the impulse to invent. Yet what makes this connection between competition and innovation remarkable is its paradox. Striving against another often leads not only to personal triumph but to communal gain. A discovery made to outpace a rival becomes knowledge shared by the world. A technique invented to win a race becomes standard practice for all who follow. A painting created to surpass a competitor becomes heritage for generations. In this way, rivalry transforms into generosity, innovation spilling outward beyond its original contest. Of course, competition can sometimes distort innovation, driving secrecy or short-term thinking. But when balanced by fairness and shared respect, it serves as one of humanity's most powerful engines of progress. The joy of striving, combined with the desire to surpass, creates fertile ground for new ideas. Competition and innovation remind us that play is not idle. It is the seedbed of creativity, a force that pushes us toward what does not yet exist. Every invention, every breakthrough, carries within it the echo of a contest, a game of surpassing limits. In this sense, competition is not only about who wins, but about what is created in the process, gifts that endure long after the contest is over. It is tempting to think of play as belonging to childhood, a fleeting stage of life where imagination and games are natural companions. Yet play does not vanish as we grow older. It shifts, changes form, adapts to new circumstances, but it remains with us, a quiet thread woven through adulthood. Competition, too, takes on subtler, more complex shapes, carrying forward the same lessons of resilience, connection, and joy. Adults still run and leap, though often on courts and fields rather than playgrounds. They gather for sports leagues, weekend races, or casual games of tennis. Beneath the seriousness that sometimes surrounds these contests lies the same impulse as childhood, the desire to test limits, to feel the body strain and recover, to delight in striving. The laughter after a game, the camaraderie of teammates, the handshake with opponents, all echo the spirit of childhood play, matured but unchanged in essence. In the workplace, play appears in disguised forms. A debate in a meeting can feel like a game of strategy, colleagues presenting ideas like moves on a board. Deadlines become races, projects become puzzles, and recognition becomes a kind of prize. Though wrapped in seriousness, these competitions sharpen skills and foster creativity, much like the games of youth. The difference is not the presence of play, but the stakes attached to it. Even in quiet moments, adults turn to play. Card games around a table, trivia nights with friends, puzzles solved in solitude. These are contests against others or against the self. The mind, as in childhood, seeks challenge wrapped in joy. Adults may not call these activities play, but their essence remains. They bring laughter, connection, and the thrill of striving. The social bond of play is especially significant in adulthood. Busy lives, responsibilities, and routines can isolate people, yet games bring them together. A family gathered around a board game, friends competing in a light-hearted quiz, colleagues joining a team-building exercise. Each scenario uses play to dissolve barriers and strengthen connection. The game becomes an excuse to laugh, to share, to belong. Health, too, benefits. Adults who engage in playful competition maintain physical fitness, mental flexibility, and emotional resilience. A game of soccer strengthens the body. A puzzle sharpens the mind. A trivia night lifts the spirit. These benefits arrive quietly, often unnoticed, yet they accumulate, supporting well-being in ways as essential as nutrition or rest. Play is not only joy, it is maintenance for body and soul. Importantly, play in adulthood teaches humility. Children are accustomed to losing, but adults often resist it. Yet games remind us that defeat is still part of life, that resilience must be practiced even when pride resists. To lose gracefully in adulthood is to remember that the game itself is larger than the outcome, that joy lies not only in victory but in participation. The persistence of play into adulthood reveals its evolutionary depth. If games were trivial, they would have vanished with childhood. Instead, they endure, adapting to new forms but retaining their essential role as rehearsal, connection, and joy. Adults who play are not regressing but continuing an ancient practice, one that keeps curiosity alive, that sustains resilience, that nourishes relationships. Play in adulthood reminds us that we never outgrow the need to strive within safety, to laugh in rivalry, to learn through joy. The forms may change, a tennis match instead of tag, a workplace challenge instead of hide and seek, but the heart of play remains constant. To continue playing is to continue growing, to carry forward the gentle science of competition through every stage of life. When people hear the word competition, they often think of sharp edges, of pressure, rivalry, even hostility. Yet if we look closely, we see that play transforms competition into something softer, something balanced and sustaining. This is why we may call it a gentle science. It teaches without punishing, excites without wounding, connects without dividing. At its best, competition is not a weapon but a framework for growth. The gentleness of play lies first in its boundaries. Games create safe enclosures where struggle can unfold without lasting harm. Children wrestle, but they stop before real injury. Adults spar in sports, but rules and referees preserve fairness. Within these boundaries, ambition and effort are encouraged, yet trust remains intact. It is this combination, striving within safety, that makes competition such a powerful teacher. The lessons learned in this frame extend beyond the game, carried into daily life as resilience, patience, and respect. The science of play is gentle because it disguises difficulty as joy, running until breathless, strategizing until tired, trying again after defeat. These challenges would feel heavy if demanded. But framed as play, they become irresistible. The brain rewards effort with delight, embedding lessons more deeply than obligation ever could. The gentleness lies in the delivery. Knowledge and growth arrive not as burdens but as laughter. Even rivalry, which might seem harsh, is softened by play. Opponents become partners in maintaining the contest, each needed for the other's striving to matter. A race is only meaningful when both agree to run. A chess match requires respect for the rules and the opponent's intelligence. The paradox is clear. Competition depends on cooperation. This shared responsibility tempers rivalry, turning it from conflict into connection. Cultures across history have recognized this gentleness. Rituals of fairness, opening ceremonies, bows and handshakes, all serve to remind participants that the contest is framed by respect. Even when ambition burns fiercely, these rituals cool the flame, ensuring that the joy of play survives. By honoring these traditions, societies preserve competition as a source of harmony rather than discord. The gentle science of play also lies in its inclusivity. Because games can be invented from the simplest materials, stones, chalk, words, gestures, they invite participation across age, status, and ability. A child can challenge an elder, strangers can join a circle of play, and laughter can dissolve differences that might otherwise divide. In this sense, play becomes a form of quiet equality, reminding us that everyone has a place within its frame. Gentleness does not mean weakness. The lessons of play are profound, preparing us for conflict, uncertainty, and loss, but they are delivered in ways that build rather than break. Losing teaches humility, but without despair. Striving teaches endurance, but without cruelty. Victory teaches pride, but softened by respect. This balance, cultivated over millennia, makes competition not a destructive force but a nurturing one. Perhaps the most remarkable aspect of this gentle science is how natural it feels. We do not force ourselves to play, we are drawn to it. Children invent games without prompting. Adults return to sports, puzzles, and contests despite busy lives. The impulse is not imposed but arises from within, as if life itself insists that we learn through joy. To see competition in this light is to shift perspective. It is not a harsh struggle for dominance, but a gentle frame for growth. It teaches us to strive and surrender, to test and to trust, to laugh and to learn. This is the essence of the gentle science of play, that through rivalry contained in safety, humanity has found a way to practice life's hardest lessons in its softest form. Play is as old as life itself, yet it is never finished. With every generation, new forms of competition emerge, reflecting the changing world. Just as children once raced across open fields, and ancient societies carved their games into stone, we now invent new arenas for rivalry, some physical, some digital, some yet to be imagined. To think about the future of play is to ask how the timeless impulse to compete will adapt to the shifting landscapes of culture, technology, and imagination. Already, play has expanded into virtual worlds. Video games allow millions to compete across continents, bound by rules that exist only in code. Here, competition unfolds in realms of fantasy and invention. Players race through imagined galaxies, battle with spells, or solve puzzles in spaces that defy physics. Yet the core remains familiar. There are still rules, still winners and losers, still laughter and frustration. Even in these futuristic landscapes, the ancient frame of play survives. Technology also allows cooperation and competition to blend in new ways. Online platforms host collaborative challenges, where teams of strangers work together across time zones, solving riddles, building worlds, or completing missions. Rivalry persists, but it is reshaped into collective striving, proving that the future of play may emphasize unity as much as opposition. Artificial intelligence is also beginning to shape competition. Machines that once served as opponents in simple games now rival humans in complex strategy. Chess, Go, and even creative tasks like music or design are becoming new frontiers, where humans measure themselves not only against one another, but against intelligent systems. This raises new questions. What does it mean to win when your opponent is not human? How does rivalry change when the boundaries of intelligence expand? These are not threats to play, but extensions of its eternal curiosity. The future of play will also be shaped by our global challenges. As societies face issues of climate, resource distribution, and cooperation across borders, games may become tools for problem-solving. Already, scientists and educators use game-like simulations to explore solutions, turning competition into laboratories of imagination. In this way, the impulse to play may help humanity address problems far beyond the playground. At the same time, ancient traditions of play will endure. Children will still chase one another in fields, toss balls, and invent games with chalk and sticks. Families will still gather around tables for board games. Friends will still laugh through competitions of wit and song. The future may add new forms, but the roots remain the same: joy, rivalry, fairness, and connection. Perhaps what is most certain about the future of play is its resilience. Despite wars, migrations, technological revolutions, and cultural shifts, play has never disappeared. It adapts, transforms, and reinvents itself. But it endures because it speaks to something essential in us. As long as humans exist, the impulse to compete gently, to test ourselves within boundaries, will remain. The future of play will likely be both dazzling and familiar, dazzling in the technologies that expand our arenas, familiar in the laughter, suspense, and joy that have always defined competition. Whether in digital landscapes, on open fields, or in rituals yet to be born, play will continue to teach us, connect us, and remind us of what it means to be human. Play's future is not a departure from its past, but its continuation. The forms will change, but the heart will not. We will still gather, still strive, still laugh, still learn. The gentle science of competition will carry forward, weaving joy into whatever worlds we create. From the first playful chases of children to the grand spectacles of global sport, from the tumbling of wolf pups to the riddles exchanged by poets, competition has always been with us. What begins as instinct grows into ritual, into culture, into tradition. And beneath every contest, whether fierce or gentle, lies the same enduring truth. Play is one of life's quiet teachers, shaping who we are without demanding, guiding us without harshness, offering lessons wrapped in joy. We have walked through its origins in the animal world, where play is rehearsal for survival. We have seen how children invent games instinctively, transforming sticks and stones into tools of imagination. We have traced how cultures shaped contests to reflect their deepest values, whether endurance, wit, courage, or cooperation. And we have followed how adults too carry play forward, in sports, in puzzles, in the creative rivalries of art and science. Across all these forms, the pattern holds. Competition framed by fairness becomes not conflict but connection, not destruction but creation. Play teaches resilience by softening the blow of loss. It teaches patience by making us wait for turns, for dice to roll, for opponents to move. It teaches humility by reminding us that victory is never permanent and fortune never guaranteed. It teaches creativity by forcing us to adapt when chance disrupts our plans. And it teaches cooperation by making clear that no contest can exist without mutual agreement to its rules. Perhaps most profound of all, play reminds us of joy, the laughter of children racing across fields, the smiles exchanged between rivals after a match, the collective cheer of spectators watching a close game. These are not trivial moments. They are expressions of life at its most human, moments when striving and delight join hands. Through them, we glimpse that competition is not about division but about belonging, not about conquest but about discovery. Looking forward, play will continue to evolve, carried into digital worlds, woven into new rituals, used as tools for learning and problem-solving. Yet even as its forms change, its essence will remain. The heartbeat of play, the joy of striving within safety, is too deeply written into us to vanish. It will echo in playgrounds, in homes, in arenas, and in realms yet unimagined, binding people together through the gentle science of competition. As we bring this reflection to a close, remember that there is no urgency here. You do not need to win, or to keep pace, or to master every detail. It is enough to have listened, to have let these thoughts drift through you like water. Whether you drift now into sleep, or simply rest in stillness, the story of play is already part of you. It is the story of striving without harm, of laughter woven into effort, of rivalry softened by trust. It is the story of humanity itself, carried forward not in victories carved in stone, but in the countless small games that have filled our lives with joy. And so, as this journey ends, may you carry with you the gentleness of play, the strength of resilience, and the quiet delight of knowing that to compete is also to connect, to strive is also to belong, to play is also to grow. We, from Sleeping with Science, wish you a good night.